Boo boo. Boo boo. Boo boo. Boo boo, come and be a good boy. Boo boo, come be a good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Oh, you're a good boy, aren't you? I am a little bit disappointed today. I was supposed to be in New Zealand this weekend, but a snap lockdown has put an end to that, and I'll have to wait. My trip will have to wait for a couple of weeks. So in this past week, I've been thinking about this journey that we've been on, and I decided that in this video I would reflect back on the process that we've been going through now for a little bit over a year. G'day, I'm Roland Hearn, and this is a walk in the garden. Well, it's rainy today, so I'm going to take some shelter and think back across the journey that we've been on now for a little bit more than a year, and just to give you some thoughts about the next couple of steps that we're going to take. So bear with me while I take a seat, and we'll continue this journey, shall we? One of the great things that has happened this last year has been Boo coming into my life. Goodness gracious me, I love this dog so much. It scares me. I didn't know that I could love an animal as much as I love this puppy. And he's been trying really hard this morning not to bark at the neighbours too much, but he had a little bit of a step back a few moments ago. Those people that look closely may notice that I'm wearing the same shirt that I was wearing in my very first video a little over a year ago. I was thinking this week about the journey that I've been on, and that was sparked by the frustration of having this trip to New Zealand. I know I was there a couple of weeks ago, but I had a lot of things set up to a little bit longer trip, staying there a couple of weeks. I had a lot of meetings being set up, and then we had a COVID shutdown, and no one could travel, and that was something of a frustration, because we've been getting further and further along in this process, and I've had my first vaccination, and having my second one next month. And so it feels like we're moving forward, but then all of a sudden there's this reminder that we're in this space even still. And I was moved into this space by this crisis. And if you go back and look at the very first video, you'll see me talking about the global pandemic, and at that point in time there was riots happening around the world, and marches. There was also an impending economic crisis that loomed pretty hard and created a lot of pain for a lot of people. Here we are a year on, and the economic crisis has been largely avoided, I think. Obviously there's been a lot of people that have suffered economically, but we haven't moved into that place of recession or significant recession that a lot of people thought that we would, and there's rebound in lots of economies. The riots have settled. Some progress was made. Time will tell whether or not it was ultimately beneficial. Not the riots, but the ideas that were percolating in the background in that situation. Time will tell how far we've come with that. But we're still dealing with the implications of a global pandemic, and it was that situation that started me thinking about this format to talk about how this struggle was impacting me, how I have recognized my own personal struggles, and how, as a year unfolded, how I might go about explaining the way that I have tried to reflect on my own personal struggle. Those that know me well will know very, very well that is not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination. But there has been definitely some clues and keys to that process that we've talked about across this past year. It's been a little bit more than a year. It was actually June, first or second week of June last year when I started. I took a break over Christmas, and so now we're getting closer to the 50-second video, 5 or 6 videos away. At which point, I think I'm going to stop and call that a completed project. Like, Walk in the Garden won't go away, but it will no longer be a weekly video. As things come up and opportunities present themselves to record videos, I will. But these 52 weeks, if you look back across this journey, it's been a fairly complete representation of what I think is the most important for our issues for us to deal with. Issues of identity, issues of worth, and issues of the struggle with shame. And all of that collected under our human desire for love. And in that very first video, I represented the walk in the garden as the journey back to the kind of loving relationships that are reflected in the story of Adam and Eve in the garden. This idyllic, loving existence where people are safe and full and complete and have these wonderful relationships with each other, with God, and with creation. And while we will always struggle with reality, there is this call of that space that ever works in our lives, and there are steps that we can take to achieve that end. So I do think I'll get to New Zealand in the next couple of weeks, and so I'll probably include those as part of the wrap-ups of the videos. And I've been struggling with a video or 2 videos reflecting on my own personal, most significant encounter with shame and worthlessness. I've been struggling with whether or not I should represent that in this format. I think I'm probably going to wrap up the entire journey with going back to the moments in my life that created the context in which this journey has taken place. It did not cause my struggle, it did not cause my shame, but it highlighted it so powerfully in my life that it took me a long, long time to work out what was going on. So that will probably happen one of the last couple of videos that I represent. But in that very, very first video, I announced the core value to this walk, to this journey. A couple of videos later, I unpacked it a little more and made 3 primary ideas, which are very, very important. But the single most important idea that is worth us continuously reflecting on and wrestling with is that love and worth are 2 sides of the same coin. When we experience worth, we experience love. When we are experiencing worthlessness or worthlessness, we are struggling with not being able to appropriate love for our lives in those moments. And the answer to our struggle with worthlessness is always love. And it's, yes, certainly it is true that in the human sphere, relating to other people becomes an incredibly powerful context for us to explore our needs in the area of love. But significantly, the most impacting, the most important place for us to discover how much we are loved and how valued we are is, of course, embraced by the grace and love of God, who has given God's self completely to us in the form of Jesus Christ, in order to wrap His arms around us figuratively and meet the deepest need of our lives for love. And in that space, in that embrace, in that encounter, something significant happens within our lives that enables us to take that journey all the way to a metaphorical relationship that is akin to being in the original garden. So we're not finished yet. Couple of weeks to go. Hopefully, get to New Zealand, my goal is to wrap this weekly video series up at the 50-second video, which would represent a full year of video. It will have been obviously longer than a year, because I took that break over Christmas. But that's the goal. And for those that have journeyed with me to this point, thanks for coming this far with me. And I would hope that this journey has been good for you. In that original video, I said that I believed it would be good for me, and I hope it will be good for everybody else. It has been really good for me to be continuously thinking about how to apply the values of the walk in the garden to my own life, and I am grateful for this experience. So keep walking in your garden, and I'll see you next week.